The passport as we know it has only existed for about a century. It's fascinating to consider that just over 100 years ago, people could travel the world without any government-issued identity documents. Before the First World War, this was the normal state of affairs. European immigrants arriving in America simply declared their names at the border and walked right in. No papers, no bureaucracy, just freedom of movement. While early forms of travel documents did exist, they were nothing like today's passports. Travelers would carry letters from monarchs or foreign secretaries requesting safe passage through specific territories. These evolved into the standardized passports we carry today, but the transformation wasn't smooth or universally welcomed. There was actually significant opposition to the introduction of mandatory passports. In 1920, the League of Nations held a passport conference with the goal of restoring pre-war freedom of movement. The delegates recognized that mandatory passports constituted a serious obstacle to normal intercourse and the economic recovery of the world. They concluded that while security concerns prevented immediate abolition, they hoped to eliminate passports in the future. Instead, they recommended a standard 2-year passport to facilitate international travel, which became the foundation for our current system. The campaign against passports continued throughout the 1920s. The International Conference of Emigration and Immigration in Rome in 1924 stated that the necessity of obtaining passports should be abolished as soon as possible. 2 years later in Geneva, Polish delegate Franciszek Sokal demanded that all League of Nations members immediately abolish passport requirements. At that time, passports were still viewed as serious restrictions on fundamental freedoms. By the end of the 1920s, however, governments had shifted their perspective. Passports were increasingly seen as tools that could help refugees stay in countries they had fled to after the war. The tide had turned, and what was once viewed as temporary had begun to solidify into permanence. After the Second World War, the United Nations revisited the passport question. At the 1947 Conference on Passports and Frontier Formalities, delegates considered returning to the pre-1914 regime of passport-free travel. But they concluded the world had changed too much. The dream of unrestricted movement was fading. As recently as 1963, the UN Conference on International Travel and Tourism recognized the desirability of progressively freer international travel from both economic and social perspectives. Yet they admitted it wasn't feasible to recommend abolishing passports on a worldwide basis. Today, we've reached a point where international travel without a passport is virtually impossible. Air travel absolutely requires one. The only ways to cross borders without documentation are on foot or by boat, and even then, you'll likely face challenges from border authorities. What was once an emergency wartime measure has become an accepted fact of life. Passports have evolved into tools of control, exactly as early objectors feared. Governments now use passport removal to punish and force compliance. The United States will refuse to renew your passport if you owe more than $50,000 in taxes. The United Kingdom restricts passports for football fans who've misbehaved at matches. Courts confiscate passports in both civil and criminal cases. Edward Snowden's case illustrates this perfectly. After leaking details of U.S. domestic spying programs, he fled to Hong Kong and then boarded a flight to Russia, intending to reach Ecuador. While he was in transit, the U.S. government canceled his passport, hoping he'd be denied entry to Russia and returned to American custody. Though their plan failed in Snowden's high-profile case, countless others have been less fortunate. This creates a fascinating paradox. While passports are fundamentally anti-freedom tools of control, having multiple passports from different countries actually increases your freedom. One government can't completely control your movements when you hold citizenship elsewhere. If one country cancels your passport, you can use another to maintain your mobility. Carlos Ghosn's escape demonstrates this principle dramatically. The former CEO of Nissan and Renault was arrested in Japan and detained for months. After being released on bail and recognizing he could spend the rest of his life in Japanese prison, Ghosn orchestrated an elaborate escape. He hid in a large container designed for transporting musical instruments and was smuggled onto a private jet. Ghosn succeeded because he held multiple citizenships from France, Brazil, and Lebanon. While Japanese authorities had confiscated at least one of his passports, His Lebanese citizenship guaranteed him entry to Lebanon without fear of being returned to Japan. His second citizenships literally saved him from potentially spending his remaining years imprisoned. Most of us find it difficult to imagine ending up in Gossen's situation, but for anyone running a business or possessing modest wealth, attacks on freedom are increasing. Government regulations multiply every year for everyone. It's not hard to imagine inadvertently running afoul of tax authorities or other regulators. Having a second passport represents the ultimate insurance policy. Life is unpredictable, but having options is always better than having none. In a world where passports have become tools of control rather than facilitators of freedom, securing second citizenships has become essential for anyone who truly values their liberty. If you want to reduce your taxes to single digits, make your assets impossible for anyone to touch, and gain more freedom with second citizenships, get in touch with Liberty Mundo and book a consultation call. We will help you develop a complete blueprint to organize your life to safeguard your wealth and your freedom. Follow the link in the description for more details. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.